Towards Understanding with Clayton Bielen values being a positive radio program for everyone. As we present today's episode, please accept this little ears warning. Some of the themes discussed may not be suitable for children.
G'day, Kate.
G'day, Clayton. Nice to be chatting with you today.
It's so good to talk with you. We're going to get involved a whole lot of what you actually do and all of it behind it. But maybe just before we sort of start the deep dive, could you tell us a little bit in that sort of 20-second summary of what is the Dignity Freedom Network?
So we work in India and we work with people who fall outside the caste system, and we have 4 main areas of focus: education, healthcare, advocacy and economic empowerment. We want to see these people discover that they are created with value and worth and then empowered in their lives.
How long has the Dignity Freedom Network been running?
So we've just had our 10th year here in Australia, but the work on the ground in India has been operational for since I think the 50s in all sorts of different guises and different ways.
One of the things that in Australia and New Zealand, where this program is airing, that we understand that there's a caste system in India, but sometimes it's helpful to sort of understand the layering of that, and especially the lowest caste, what they have to put up with. Could you just paint the picture of what a sort of a normal day might be for somebody sitting in that position?
Yeah, so the caste system was actually banned in the 1950s, 60s, but it still is practiced to this day. And so there's 4 main castes, and then underneath that comes a group who have previously been known as the untouchables. These days they're known as Dalits, and so that word means crushed, oppressed and broken. And so they really don't feel like they have any value at all. And so one of the things that we want to do is instill in them the fact that they do have value. For them, many of them don't have an education, many of them live in complete poverty, many of them experience exploitative medical practices, and so we have this holistic way of working with them and helping them to break free of those shackles.
I love that is the work and the focus. It is very much part of the call to make our world a better place. I know for you, Kate, too, that your faith drives you in that way. Can you tell us a little bit about the faith that sort of drives the work that you're doing?
Yes, Clayton, so I think I was about 6 when I first heard about untouchability, and it's something that really appalled me. And even though I didn't really have a strong faith then, I think that a Judeo-Christian worldview permeates everything here in Australia and in New Zealand, which I just love. And that's when we do ascribe value to people. And so for me, having come to faith, that just really means so much more. And all the way through the scriptures, we can hear about how God has a heart for those on the margins, for the orphans, for the widows, for those who are marginalised by people. And I think that that's one of the things that I just love being involved in, is seeing hope restored and dignity restored.
Before we start talking about those 4 areas, and I know you've got different stories for us to share with each of those, I know that it is often the case that families don't necessarily, put their children or whatever in these situations, but they certainly don't help it in various aspects. Could you describe to us why families might allow certain other members of their family to find themselves in this sort of lowest class in India?
Well, the caste system is just part of the worldview that shapes many countries around the world, and it just is what it is. So you're born in your caste, you marry within your caste, you work within your caste, and you can't move from one caste to the other. And I think that's one of the things that I love about a Judeo-Christian worldview, is that you can dream big dreams. Any child in Australia could actually dream of playing cricket for Australia, and if they've got the skills and the ability, somebody will come alongside them and they can actually dream those dreams. But for those who are born into this Dalit caste or this other backward caste, for them, they don't have that capacity to dream big dreams. And I think that's one of the things we want to address, is helping them to know that there is a purpose and a plan for their lives.
Let's talk about each of these areas. You mentioned them earlier on. Is there one that you sort of start with more often than not with the Dignity Freedom Network?
We don't start the work. It's all nationally led and run. So it's started by the people on the ground when they identify that there is a need, and then we come alongside them and support them. And often we work with them to identify what the drivers are So it's not just a matter of bringing in a whole new program. It's a matter of saying, how did this happen and why is it like this and what can we do to address that? So I think it all really began with education. Early 2000s, en masse, many of these people decided, these Dalit people, wanted to break free and see their children empowered. And they looked around and they saw that we tell everybody from Genesis chapter 1 that everyone's created in God's image. Everybody has value and worth. And they came to our leaders at the time and said, could you take our children? Would you give them this worldview and empower them with English medium education? So that's really where we started. And so from there, we've grown to having over 90 schools across the country for this particular, any child who's marginalised, who comes from a tribal or other backward caste group. They're the ones who have access to our education system, to our schools. So at the moment, we've got around 20,000 of these children, and they're getting English medium education, they're getting exposure to the arts, they're getting exposure to, as I said, non-exploitative healthcare. There's health workers at the school and nutritional supplements. Many of these kids come from such impoverished backgrounds that they struggle with malnutrition. So it's identifying all the different aspects, and that's why it's so holistic, and that's why it's so incredible in, really empowering this next generation.
Is the choice being sort of deliberately made to say, let's target the children in that sense? Or is there, I'm sure that you do help everyone around the family as well. Is that sort of something that you go, well, that just makes sense that this group of people have said, come and educate our kids. And so the education and the healthcare and the economic empowerment, all of that is going to take place in there. Is it mostly focused on children, or does it go wider than that?
Well, the schools focus on the children, but that was because the parents invited us into that space and entrusted us with their children. But in other areas, for the women, there's one particular project that I really love, and it's sort of in northern Tamil Nadu, and in this particular area, it's a very impoverished area where many of the men left to get work, and when they came back after many months, many of them were HIV positive. They then infected their wives and then died. And so now they're Dalit, they're women, they're single mums, they're HIV positive, so they're stigmatised in so many ways. And so with them, we've got a clinic, we've got counsellors who help them understand the stigma of HIV and help them manage that, but also provide them with economic empowerment. So there's all different programs that they have. And one of the ones that I really love is that they create this product called Manamix, where they grind up all these pulses and it forms a nutritional supplement that helps the people around them. But people are actually coming to them for help for this product. And so it's not even just that they've got a job or they're eking out a living, but they're actually doing something that's helping other people. And to see the joy on their faces and to see the camaraderie and to see that restoration of flourishing, I think it's just really, really inspiring.
In that regards, especially around, I suppose, education, is there a story, because often and we're not asking for sharing of names, of course, but often it's great to sort of hold on to one story that sort of really paints the picture. Is there, you've probably got hundreds, but is there one that you love sharing?
There are hundreds. Whenever we go and we talk to the kids and ask them what they want to be, I think one of the things that really inspires me is how many of the kids want to become police or join the army or actually work in the public system so that they can help change their community around them as well and take it to the next level. So many of them also want to go back, or maybe they want to study nursing or becoming doctors, because they also see the needs in the village. So one particular school that I really love, I've been to a number of times, and when you go there, there's this beautiful clinic and it's all painted beautifully and they take care of all sorts of things that we take for granted. But when you talk to the community health worker who is running this particular practice, this clinic at this school in this area, she was one of the students herself. And so she went through the school coming from nothing, coming from an impoverished background, coming from an exploitative situation. And she's now gone on to complete her education. She's gone on to complete her nursing degree. And she's now there going back into her community and overseeing and ensuring that the next generation are also receiving the healthcare that they need. So it's about they don't just escape from the poverty, they come back in to make a difference. And we see that again and again with our graduates.
And it really does bring those sort of four ideas that you talked about all together. You can't separate them out, which is just wonderful too. We're going to be back in a couple of minutes' time as we continue talking ahead of International Women's Day with Kate from the Dignity Freedom Network. We're going to talk a bit more about some of the work that they are doing and also the importance of what it means to actually be having these conversations throughout the year, but especially also around International Women's Day. That's on the way next here on Towards Understanding.
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton Bielen. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
Before we do talk a bit more about that, though, the importance of this time and this moment, and International Women's Day is a great opportunity to talk about empowering women. We know that, for centuries, there's certainly not had the same opportunities across the majority of cultures around our world as men have. How special is this moment for you when you are working with those who are really considered the lowest of the low in India? It must be a special time to have the opportunity to have a chat, Kate.
Oh, it really is. And they take International Women's Day so seriously because it's reclaiming that value of not being a second-class citizen, but having that dignity and worth and being with these women and just seeing the joy on their faces and seeing them embracing community as well. Many of them so marginalised. It's really, really a joy and a privilege.
We've heard you talk about sort of the education, healthcare, and even back to the economic empowerment. We haven't maybe dug into as much of that. One of the other parts that I know you do work in is anti-human trafficking. Could you talk to us about the work that you are doing there? I'm imagining the team, and sorry, I keep saying the work you're doing. We do understand that you are empowering those on the ground who are doing the work. But could you talk to us a bit about how, I suppose, the identification process happens, and then what change are you actually trying to bring in?
Mm-hmm. And they're really great questions. I'm also aware that some listeners might have very young ears, and so I'm going to use euphemisms. Gotcha. And if people are thinking really bad, you're on the right track. So there comes a time in the life of some of these little girls where they get chosen to be dedicated in a marriage-like ceremony. And so once they hit puberty, they become the property of the village. So any man can use and abuse these women. So that it could be, 5, 10, 15 times a day, 7 days a week for the rest of their often very short lives. We engaged Melbourne University, who did a whole study in the area to identify where this practice was happening, how widespread it was, and with that in place, our team on the ground started connecting with the women and by women often they're as young as 13, 14, 15, and coming alongside them and befriending them. And it all really started because one of the team in India was doing a rural placement in a medical clinic, and girl after girl was presenting HIV positive at very young age. And she started asking why. This is just so crazy. I didn't become a doctor so that I could help people die. I became a doctor to help them live, but instead I'm just holding their hands. And so she started looking into it. Then we engaged Melbourne University. They did this study. And so with that in place, we could identify where this practice happened. And so we go to these women and we let them know they don't have to say yes to men. We've brought in a team of lawyers who have framed laws, so it's now prosecutable. It was already made illegal on the ground. So with that in place, we empower them. We walk into police stations with them, not me physically, but the people in our team, file, rape charges, hold the men accountable. And where we've been doing this now for the last 10 years or so, we're actually seeing the dedication stopping. We're seeing these women empowered to leave this evil practice. And we're seeing the whole community changing. It's a terrible system and it just doesn't work for anybody. And so to see these communities moving into wholeness has been really great. And again, we do it by looking at the drivers, why they're being dedicated in the first place, and addressing those.
There's what am I trying to get to? I'm taken back, Kate. I'm very rarely lost for words, but what I think I'm trying to get into words here is you have so much hope and positivity about what you do, and yet you're dealing in situations that seem to have that hopelessness. It must be a privilege to do that. How do you and then the team and those you work with, how do you keep them, I suppose, positive when there does seem to be so much negativity flowing at them?
Such a good question. And I think it is because we are seeing such hope. It's the women themselves that when they discover that they were never created to be exploited in this way, when they discover that they have value, that they have worth, and when they discover that there are people who want to befriend them and want to empower them, they become our advocates on the ground. So it's these women themselves who have had so much trauma in their lives. They're the ones who are advocating for the rights of the other women in their village, and they're the ones who are working to prevent the dedication of other little girls so that they don't ever have to experience what they've experienced. And they're just the most courageous women I've ever met, and they'll say, you know, what are you going to throw at me? Are you going to, you know, punch me? I've been punched. Are you going to abuse me? I've been abused. There's nothing else that can be done to me. I'm just going to stand here and work to see this practice come to an end. And so they're the absolute champions that we love supporting.
Remarkable, just remarkable. From Dignity Freedom Network's perspective as well, you know, there's a lot of organisations and a lot of people doing great work around our world. And I know that even off air, we've talked about ones that you would work with and support and things like that. The role that Dignity Freedom Network plays seems to be so unique in that it's tying these various things in. Is there anyone doing similar work to you in that way?
There most likely is. I don't know of them. As I say, we're working in a very specific geographical area. And so, and that was sort of predicated around this study from Melbourne University. Adelaide University has also been very involved with writing papers and so on about the work. They come to us. Certainly the shelter home, we don't do orphanages, but we do have a shelter home for the girls who are most at risk. And the local government authorities have given it an A++ rating and are saying to others, look at what they're doing with these girls. They're getting the education, they're getting the healthcare, they're getting, you know, all of the whole all. And so I'm sure that there are others working in this space. I don't know of them in this specific geographical area.
Can we talk a little bit about a story as well? And as we said, you've got plenty of stories, but around that economic empowerment so often, and there's been countless studies, we've talked about it on this program actually for years and years and years as well, that more often than not, if you can empower the mother or a woman in society, there is dramatic change, way higher percentage than actually empowering the male in that society for various reasons around that. And yet so often that hasn't been the way. I know microfinancing has been trying to focus around that, all sorts of things. Could you share some of your stories around how you are providing better economic empowerment? I suppose if there's someone's story to share as well.
So this one really touched my heart. We have different focuses because some of them have education and some of them don't have education. So for this particular lady, she's not had much education at all. And so she ended up joining one of our sewing programs, and somebody sponsored her for the course and also for a sewing machine. But I was in a very, very remote rural area, and I walked in and it was a very hot day. It was a corrugated iron roof, and there was just this buzz of women talking. So first of all, I thought, well, that's fantastic because many of these women have been so ostracised. You know, the men are sleeping with them, so they use and abuse them. The women know their husbands are sleeping with them, so they ostracise them. But there was this buzz and this conversation that was happening during this sewing program that was going on. And then I heard one of the women wanted to come and talk to me specifically. So I thought, great, this is lovely. She's probably going to ask me for something. Can I sponsor her child? Can I get her something? So she came over to me, and I mean, many of them are very short because of stunted growth, because of malnutrition, but she was standing tall, and so to speak. And she looked at me, and I took her hands, and then I waited for her to speak, but I saw this tear just form in the corner of her eye, and it just started running down her cheek, and her chin started to quiver. And I said, what is it? How can I help you? What did you want to say? And she said, I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't know I could ever experience happiness like this.
Isn't that right?
So I just broke. I put my arms around her and I just held her. But I mean, others are doing paramedical courses, the ones who have had some level of education, and they go back into their communities and they become the health workers that people look to and come to for advice and help. And just seeing that whole switching over, that whole stark difference from what they've been to what they're becoming is so beautiful.
That is just a wonderful opportunity to celebrate with somebody in the midst of some darkness, to actually have the light and then to celebrate with them. It's wonderful to get that. And I know that's not why you do the work, Kate, to hear the stories and to get somebody say thank you, but it's always nice to hear that. Ahead of International Women's Day on the 8th of March, we are thinking about these topics and ideas. What would be your encouragement to us about, I suppose, firstly, how can we help the work of Dignity Freedom Network? And as you work with so many women in a whole lot of various phases of life, what would be your encouragement and perhaps challenge about the way we should think about our world in different ways as well?
Oh, two questions there. Very good questions. For us specifically, it is, as I say, it's these women on the ground who have come out of the practice who are the ones who are ending it in their village. So where we have workers like them, we're seeing dedications coming to a complete end. It costs $250 a year to support one of these women. And around International Women's Day, we invite women to be involved by whatever it is they want to do. Some have clothes swaps, some have high teas, some have cooking classes, whatever it is. But for every increment of $250 that's raised during this particular time, that offsets the cost of supporting these beautiful women for an entire year. So that's what we do. That's what we talk about around International Women's Day. It's about getting behind these women, supporting them and seeing more of these women sponsored so we can expand into more villages. But I think just recognising the value of a woman, and I just love how Genesis talks about, men and women, he created them. He created them equal. And obviously there's heaps of differences, and obviously there's so many positives about both men and about women, but it's about recognising that we're all created in his image, and I think that that's just such a life-changing truth.
In terms of deliberate connection, if people want to find out not just how to, maybe give and support, but also the opportunities to perhaps volunteer or maybe even experience some of the work as well. I know that you can sort of do all of that. Is there a best website for people to get in touch?
Yes, they can go to DFN, that's Dignity Freedom Network, dfn.org.au, or they could call our phone on 1800 949 774. We'd love to talk to anybody about being involved in any way whatsoever. If anything's touched their hearts, if they've got ideas, we'd love to hear from people.
That's 1800 949 774 or DFN for Dignity Freedom Network, dfn.org.au. Kate, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. Thank you on behalf of so many who you lead and you work with for the remarkable work they are doing to truly show others that they are loved, I reckon, not just by God, but by others as well. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. And our key verse is from Proverbs 31, 8 and 9 about being a voice for those who have no voice. So thank you, Clayton, for allowing me to be a voice for these women and these girls at this time of year.
The CEO at Dignity Freedom Network. It's been wonderful to have a chat to Kate here on Towards Understanding.